Welcome to video 5 of the Coder's Bracket tutorial videos, where we will be talking about how to combine choosing the winner based on their seed and an element of randomness. Because as we all know, in the March Madness, why they call it March Madness is there is definitely an element of randomness, or if you don't like randomness, human competitive spirit that makes things not work out the way that the seeds work. So this, as all the tutorial videos are, this is about one of the code examples in the examples dropdown. This one is half and half, seed and random. And you guys should hold on to your math hats, because we are going to be doing a little bit of math to determine the winner in this video. So here you can access the code that I'm going to be building in the half and half seed and random code example. I'm going to delete this example and code it from scratch, explaining what I'm doing as I go along. So I'm setting up our function that's going to run for each game in the tournament. If you listened to the earlier videos, it's always the same function that takes a game, team 1 and team 2 as parameters, and then functions in JavaScript, you open a curly brace and then close a curly brace. So what we want to do is we want to somehow choose the winner of one game based on their seed, but also to have a little bit of an element of randomness in determining the winner as well. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create two variables. So random 1, that's one random number, and that's going to be equal to JavaScript's math object, math.random, and that is in parentheses. And if you watch the video on random numbers, I go into a little bit more depth about how math.random works, but essentially it returns a number between 0 and 1, but not quite including 1. So it could be 0, and it could be almost up to 1, but it's not ever 1. And another random variable, so this is random2, and that's going to be equal to math.random as well. And you'll notice that for each time this function runs, for each game, these math.randoms are going to be different, right? They're going to be different numbers every time. And this math.random, put some semicolons in, this math.random is not at all going to be the same as this math.random, except in a very improbable situation where both math.randoms actually are the same, but there's no reason why they should be the same. They will usually be different, because every time you call math.random, you get a different random number. Okay, so we're also, because we want to include an element of the seed, we don't just want things to be random, we want the seed to also be important of the team. Lower seeded teams, the number 1 seed team is the best. We also want to include their seed. And to do that, we are going to use logarithms, and JavaScript has, the math object has something for us there. So we're going to say the log of team 1's seed is equal to math.log of team 1's seed, and we're actually going to add 1 to avoid this ever being 0 in the case of the number 1 seeded team. So we're just going to add 1 to all of the seeds that we might see. So this is var, and if you're sort of getting a little bit confused and logarithms are a bit hazy, I am going to go a little bit into the math behind this in just a second. So the log of team 2's seed, I'm just doing the same thing for team 2, math.log of team 2's seed, and again +1 to avoid this it being 0 problem. Great. So now we have two random numbers, random 1 and random 2, and we have the log of the team's seed. So we have the log of team 1's seed +1 and the log of team 2's seed +1. And the reason that we're doing this, well, let's write out the if statement. So if, and it'll become more apparent after this is written out. So if random 1 times the log of team 1's seed is less than random 2 times the log of team 2's seed. So if this random 1 times the log of team 1 seed is less than random 2 times the log of team 2 seed, then we are going to say that that means that team 1 is going to win the game. And else, if that's not the case, we're going to say that team 2 wins the game. Okay, so let's add these semicolons. So let's explain a little bit about how this is working. We want to include their seed, but if we were to include the seed just as it was without taking its log, it would be it would be very, very hard for a team that is a higher seed to win over a team that is a lower seed. So let me show you a little bit about why that is. So let's look at two graphs. This is a graph. Let's put this up here. This is a graph of the log of x. And here we have a graph, a linear graph, where y is just equal to x. So this is the case where if we were to just not take the log, right? And so you would multiply some random number between 1 and 0 by whatever the seed was. And you can see that there is the bonus that you get is a lot. You know, like if you're the number 1 or number 2 seed, I mean that's a double. You're going to double your money in terms of the random number that you're being multiplied by. But if you take the log, you'll see that the difference between, well, we add 1 to each of the logs, but the difference between, this would be the number 1 seed, right? This is your log, and the number 3 is somewhere here. The number 3 seed, this is your log. That difference is, you still get a benefit to being the, stop this. Oh, we gotta go back. You still get a benefit to being the number 1 seed because you're likely going to be you're likely going to be lower, but it's not so much. You see that this, in a linear graph, you get a lot of benefit to being the number 1 seed, right? These numbers go up very quickly. So we took the log to kind of curve out that benefit. So even if you're the number, let's say, even if you're the number 12 seed, your number, it's probably going to be higher than the number 1 seed, but not so much if it was comparing the number 1 seed, which is right here, to the number 12 seed on this graph. So that is why we are using logs and plus 1. So let's see if this code will win this game, or not rather win, but actually run. Okay, so here we have Florida winning, and Florida is the number 1 seed, and you see that the number 2 seed also got in. So let's run this again, and there should be an element of randomness in it, and see what comes out. Virginia. So you see that this is kind of creating, and I'll run it again, it's creating a situation much like life where the seed does matter, but there's also this element of randomness. For demonstration's sake, let's just say, and you can do this by yourself, but let's change this. Let's just make it, let's get rid of this math.log, and let's just make this the seed. And we'll see that it should be a little, the seed should be much more important now. In fact, it may never be that not the number 1 seed wins. So let's try it. Okay, so Florida wins, and you do see that we have these random numbers and we all are multiplying them. Let's try it again. Yeah, it's going to be, because you get such a bump for being 1 up, it's going to be very difficult. Virginia. Okay, so it's going to be more consistently based on the seed here, and taking the log, again, because the log sort of evens the playing field, is going to be more lifelike. Okay, well, as always, when you're happy with your bracket, you can save it and you can enter your information here and compete for prizes and glory. And I will see you in the next video.